Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Literate Texan. I'm Randy Ray, your ever-loving host, and I've got some coffee here in a very literary coffee mug. Today, I'm going to talk about a short story by Sheridan le Fanu called Green Tea, which I read on my Kindle and which also qualifies for two different Booktube events. One is October, which is a celebration of the Occult Detective story. And this particular story, the Green Tea by Sheridan le Fanu, is a ghost story from, around 1870 or so, which also puts it right in keeping with Victober. So, two birds with one stone, a short story that qualifies for Victober and Occult Detective October. And let me tell you, I had never read Green Tea before. I wasn't sure what to expect. I know that the ghost story was really popular in Victorian England. Sheridan le Fanu is an Irish author who wrote more than just ghost stories. He also wrote mystery novels and historical novels, but he is best known for his ghost stories. And he's probably best known, Green Tea is one of his more famous ones. I got this out of the Penguin Book of Ghost Stories, which I have on my Kindle here, obviously. Hey! So, from Elizabeth Gaskell to Ambrose Bierce. I know Ambrose Bierce, I've read some of his short stories, so Green Tea is fantastic. I want to say it was about 25 pages. Took me about an hour to read. I did read it twice so that I could try to talk about it intelligently in this video. And I did mark a couple of things. And I don't remember how to look up my bookmarks on here yet, but I will figure it out. So yeah, I marked a couple of things that I wanted to read out loud from the story. There are no spoilers, or very, very minor spoilers in what I've got highlighted here. But I just wanted to give you an idea of, back up a little bit, okay? So, not only is Sheridan le Fanu famous for the short story Green Tea, he's also famous for a book called Camilla, which is a vampire novel that predates Dracula about a lesbian vampire. And I have a very special edition of Camilla that I believe, it's definitely one of a kind. It was bound by my friend Forrest Jackson, who's appeared on my show before to talk about UFO memoirs, and I believe he's coming back this weekend. I'm not sure what we're going to talk about, but I have a feeling we're going to get into some discussions of Robert E. Howard and H.P. Lovecraft. He's got some beautiful editions of that. But he's also a bookbinder. So I have this edition of Camilla that is bound in goat skin, okay? This is real leather, this binding here. And you can see, I don't know how good your camera is, but you can see the spine of where it was and stuff. So I don't know how you feel about leather-bound books, but it's absolutely beautiful inside and out. It was a gift. And just a lovely one-of-a-kind edition that he bound for me. I believe he gave this to me for my birthday. But anyway, I wanted to show this off because no one else has one of these. Certainly not bound in green goatskin like that. But anyway, we'll speed back up and we will read these excerpts from Green Tea, and then I'll have some stuff to talk about too. The first, and basically, like I said, I wanted to get across the feel for le Fanu's writing. He was an Irish author of ghost stories who, there's nothing particularly graphic. It's all about mood and atmosphere for him. So, and I thought this was really illustrative of that from the story. I stepped into this perfectly silent room of a very silent house with a peculiar foreboding, and its darkness and solemn clothing of books. For except where two narrow-looking glasses were set in the wall, they were everywhere, helped this somber feeling. Okay, so the story, without giving anything away, is about an occult detective, Dr. Hesselius. He's actually a doctor. And there are two frame stories going on here. He had a medical secretary who introduces the story and explains about Dr. Hesselius's notes. And then Dr. Hesselius tells the story from the notes, but from a perspective of someone, reasonably far in the future. But that was the first thing I had noted there. Okay, so I've got something else to read, and this is from a book in the Patient's Library. If evil spirits could perceive that they were associated with man, and yet that they were spirits separate from him, and if they could flow into the things of his body, they would attempt by 1,000 means to destroy him, for they hate man with a deadly hatred. I thought that was really great too. And then, and this isn't particularly scary, I just thought it was a cute little observation. Since it is Preptober and NaNoWriMo is coming up next month, it's probably pretty relevant. I believe that everyone who sets about writing in earnest does his work, as a friend of mine phrased it, on something. Tea or coffee or tobacco. Nowadays, it's probably more likely to be Adderall or cocaine, maybe, I don't know. Stephen King, I think, did some writing on cocaine or painkillers. I drink coffee almost constantly, which is common among recovering alcoholics. You ain't drank coffee till you've started going to AA meetings out here. But anyway, the story, without getting into too much detail, concerns a patient of Dr. Hesselius's who is, for lack of a better word, haunted. So, that's not too much of a spoiler since we know this is a ghost story. I'm not going to say anything in particular about the haunting, although there's an ambiguity about whether or not this particular haunting is really supernatural or not. And Dr. Hesselius's view is that the realm of the spirit is similar to light or electricity, that it's real and that we're all a part of it, but it's not something we detect through our ordinary senses. It's different from flesh and blood and matter. So, anyway, highly recommend reading Green Tea by Sheridan le Fanu. I'm definitely going to be coming back for more. Surprisingly, even though I owned an all-horror bookstore for several years, this is the first time I've read anything from Sheridan le Fanu. I haven't actually read that edition of Camilla yet. I don't know that I'm going to read that edition of Camilla because it's so lovely that I don't want to damage it in any way. I'll probably buy myself a cheap beater copy to read, but I definitely want to read it now. One of the things that I noticed was that even though this was written probably in 1875, 1865, somewhere in that time range, Le Fanu's command of the language is brilliant because, later, you've got H.P. Lovecraft, who was, as near as I can remember, a fan of Le Fanu's. H.P. Lovecraft is hard to read. It's abstruse. I don't know if that's the right word there or not, but it's the word that comes to mind. And he was writing, 50 years after Sheridan le Fanu, but the Le Fanu's very easy to read for me. I mean, there are some stylistic differences because it was written during the Victorian time period, but if you can handle reading a story from Sherlock Holmes, you can definitely handle a reading of this. But I recommend reading it. I recommend reading it twice. Obviously, the green tea in the story is a plot point of some sort. It seems to be the cause of the particular patient's problem for whatever reason, supernatural or not. So that is my review of Green Tea by Sheridan le Fanu, and it is a part of my reading projects for Victober, which is where we celebrate Victorian literature, and for Occult Detective October, because this is not the only Dr. Hesselius story that Le Fanu wrote. So I may be revisiting that in a future video. I don't know yet. But, with short stories, they're kind of hard to review because you can't really give much of a plot summary at all without spoiling the entire story. So I won't. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. If you made it to the end of the video, I sure do appreciate your time. And I will be back soon.